Have you ever quit something right before it was about to work? Not at the beginning, when things were hard and uncertain. Not in the middle, when progress was slow. But near the end, right when the results were starting to show. Right when the pieces were finally coming together. And instead of pushing through that last stretch, something in you pulled back, lost interest, got distracted, or found a reason to walk away. If this has happened to you more than once, you are not lazy, and you are not weak. There is a real psychological reason behind this pattern, and once you understand it, you will start to recognize it every time it tries to happen again. In this video, we're going to go deep into the real reason so many people quit right before success, not because the goal was too hard, but because of something happening inside the mind at the exact moment success becomes real. Let's start with a simple observation. Most people assume quitting happens because motivation runs out. You start a new habit, a new project, a new relationship, or a new version of yourself with a lot of energy. Over time, that energy fades, and eventually you stop. This explanation feels true, and for the early stages of anything, it often is. But there's a strange pattern that this explanation doesn't account for. Many people don't quit when motivation is at its lowest. They push through the boring middle. They survive the hardest, most uncertain stretch. And then, right as things begin to click, right as the results start becoming real, they quit. Not from exhaustion, not from lack of belief that it could work. They quit right when it starts working. This is the pattern we need to understand. And the real reason behind it isn't about energy or willpower at all. It's about identity. Here's the core idea. Your brain isn't just trying to help you reach goals. It's also trying to keep you feeling like a consistent, familiar version of yourself. This is sometimes called your self-concept. The internal picture you carry of who you are, what you're capable of, and what kind of life feels normal to you. And this self-concept is incredibly powerful, often more powerful than your conscious goals. When you start moving toward real success, especially success that would represent a significant shift from how you've seen yourself for years, you're not just changing your circumstances, you're challenging your identity. And identity, even when it's uncomfortable or limiting, feels safe simply because it's familiar. Let's make this concrete. Imagine someone who has spent years seeing themselves as the person who almost makes it, but not quite. Maybe they've started businesses that fizzled out. Maybe they've begun fitness journeys that stalled halfway. Maybe they've pursued relationships that never quite became what they hoped. Over time, without even realizing it, this pattern becomes part of their identity. Not consciously chosen, but deeply absorbed through repetition. Now imagine this same person starts something new, and this time, it's actually working. The business is gaining traction. The habit is sticking. The relationship is becoming genuinely stable and healthy. On the surface, this should feel like pure relief and excitement. And for a moment it does. But underneath that excitement, something else starts happening. A quiet, almost invisible discomfort. Because success, in this case, doesn't match the internal story this person has been carrying about themselves for years. Their conscious mind wants this to work, but a deeper, more automatic part of their mind starts asking a question it's not even fully aware of. Wait, this isn't who I am. This isn't how my story goes. And instead of that question being addressed directly, it usually shows up as behavior. A missed step here, a small excuse there, a sudden urge to start something else instead of finishing this one, a new distraction that conveniently appears right when consistency actually matters most. This is why the quitting often doesn't feel dramatic in the moment. It rarely looks like someone consciously deciding, I don't want this to work. Instead, it looks like a series of small decisions that quietly move someone away from the thing that was working. Skipping one important follow-up. Letting a growing project sit untouched for a few days, which turns into weeks. Suddenly feeling unsure about a direction that felt completely clear just days earlier. None of these decisions feel like sabotage from the inside. They feel like reasonable, practical choices in the moment. But looking back, they often line up almost perfectly with the point where things were beginning to genuinely succeed. Let's go deeper into why this happens, because understanding the mechanism is what actually helps you interrupt it. Human beings are wired to seek safety, and one of the ways the brain defines safety is through predictability. A painful situation that is familiar can actually feel psychologically safer than a positive situation that is unfamiliar, simply because the brain already knows how to navigate the familiar one. It has a map for it. It knows what to expect, even if what to expect is difficult. Unfamiliar success, on the other hand, has no map. There's no internal template for how to act, how to feel, or what comes next. And in the absence of a clear map, the brain often interprets that uncertainty as a threat, not because success is actually dangerous, but because the nervous system doesn't have a reference point for it yet. This is why so many people can tolerate immense difficulty in familiar territory, but feel strangely anxious or avoidant the moment things start improving. It's not that they don't want good things. It's that unfamiliar good things trigger the same alertness that unfamiliar bad things do, at least until the brain has enough repeated experience to build a new map. There's another layer to this as well, and it has to do with how success changes the expectations placed on you, both by yourself and by others. When you're clearly struggling, there's an unspoken permission to keep struggling. No one expects perfection from someone who is visibly still figuring things out. But the moment you start succeeding, something shifts. Now there's an expectation to maintain it, to keep showing up at that level, to not let people down, including yourself. For some people, this pressure is more uncomfortable than the discomfort of not trying at all. If you never fully succeed, you never have to face the responsibility of sustaining that success. Quitting right before that responsibility becomes real can feel, on some subconscious level, like relief. Not because failure feels good, but because it removes the pressure of having to consistently be someone new. This is often tied to a very specific, quiet fear. The fear of raised expectations. If you finish this project impressively, will people expect this level of performance from you every time going forward? If you finally reach that health goal, will you now be expected to maintain it perfectly forever? If this relationship finally becomes stable and deep, will you now be expected to keep showing up with that same vulnerability? These questions are rarely asked out loud, and most people aren't even consciously aware they're asking them. But the emotional weight of these unspoken expectations can be enough to make quitting right before success feel, in a strange way, easier than continuing. There's also a subtler psychological trap hidden inside this pattern, and it's one of the most overlooked reasons for near-success quitting. Many people are more comfortable with the identity of the person who is trying than they are with the identity of the person who did it. Trying keeps possibility alive. As long as you're still working towards something, you get to hold on to the hope that it could be amazing once it's finished. But actually finishing removes that open-ended hope and replaces it with a concrete, evaluable result. A finished project can be judged. A completed goal can succeed or disappoint. An achieved version of yourself can be measured against reality, not just imagined potential. For some people, the unlimited potential of almost there feels safer than the finality of it's done. And here's exactly what it is. Quitting right before the finish line, even unconsciously, protects that open-ended potential a little longer. So now that we understand why this happens, let's talk about what actually helps break this pattern. The first step is simply recognizing that this dynamic exists at all. Most people who quit right before success never realize that's what they're doing. They experience it as losing interest, feeling suddenly unsure, or getting randomly distracted. Naming the actual pattern, I tend to pull back right when things start working, is powerful, because it turns something automatic and invisible into something you can consciously watch for. The second step is paying close attention to timing, not just content. When you notice hesitation, doubt, or a sudden urge to shift focus, instead of only asking, is this the right decision? Also ask, where am I right now in this process? If you notice that doubt tends to spike specifically around the point where things start succeeding, that timing is data. It's telling you this may not be about the task itself, but about the identity shift the task represents. The third step is deliberately building a new internal reference point for success in small pieces, rather than waiting for one large finish line to prove everything at once. Since the brain resists unfamiliar success partly because it lacks a map, the way to build that map is through small, repeated experiences of succeeding and staying present with it, instead of immediately moving the goalpost or downplaying the win. If you finish a small milestone, actually let yourself experience having finished it. Sit with it for a moment, instead of instantly jumping to the next thing or explaining it away. Small, repeated moments like this slowly teach your nervous system that success isn't unfamiliar or dangerous. It's survivable and eventually normal. The fourth step is becoming aware of the specific expectation-based fears hiding underneath the urge to quit. Instead of vaguely feeling unsettled, ask yourself directly, what am I actually afraid will be expected of me if this works? Often, naming the specific fear, whether it's the fear of being asked to maintain a new standard, or the fear of being seen differently by people around you, reduces its power significantly. Vague anxiety is much harder to work with than a clearly identified concern. And the fifth step is choosing, in advance, to finish things even when the urge to quit shows up disguised as a reasonable decision. This doesn't mean ignoring genuine, well-thought-out reasons to stop something. It means becoming suspicious of quitting decisions that arrive suddenly, right at the point of momentum, especially when they don't align with any new information. Just a vague loss of interest or a sudden pull towards something else. If nothing has actually changed about the situation itself, except that it started working, that's often a sign the resistance is coming from identity, not from genuine misalignment. Understanding this pattern doesn't mean you'll never feel the pull to quit again. You probably will. The goal isn't to eliminate that instinct completely. The goal is to recognize it the moment it shows up. So instead of automatically obeying it, you get to choose whether to follow it or not. If this video explained a pattern you've experienced yourself, let me know in the comments where in your own life you've noticed this happening. And if you want more videos that go deep into the psychology behind the patterns that quietly shape our behavior, subscribe, because we break this down every single week.